Andy Strickland, along with many others, reporting that the owners are going to meet on the expansion process in Atlanta and Houston. And I talked to Alan about it yesterday on Agent Provocateur. Sorry, I keep bringing it up, but obviously it came up in the thing. Alan's takes on it were very, very interesting. But Atlanta and Houston seem to be the two teams that are going to happen. And one of the things that that I think is fascinating about this is, like, if it gets approved this year, let's say, it's still going to be about 4 years before either of these teams show up. Arenas and everything else. Houston has a pretty good history with hockey. Specifically, I don't know if you know this, the Houston Aeros with Gordie Howe, Mark Howe, and Marty Howe won the Avco Cup of the WHA like 3 times in a row before the league folded.
It's a big deal.
The Avco Cup was a big deal. And then beyond that, the Atlanta group seems to be the one everybody's super pumped about. And Alan mentioned in the show, he's like, it was like mind-blowing, the presentation, apparently. Like the NHL
For Houston?
For Atlanta.
For Atlanta.
Like they are blown away with what this arena, entertainment park, whatever is going to be.
Did they have really good renderings of what the NHL could look like in Atlanta?
I mean, they might actually have some stock photos. But I think I asked him the question, and I'm I think you should go and listen to his answer of it. But it's so funny to hear people's reaction online. It's you get the Drew take, the producer Drew take, which is, well, we got to focus on making the league better before we expand.
That's a
Bart's Drew.
What?
That's such a man. How old are you, Drew?
Sorry,
how old are you?
Can you do that Drew impression again?
Well, we got to make sure that the league's better with the 32 that we have. Like,
why did you go off Texas
for a second?
Today I learned a producer Drew is Fat Albert. That's what that sounded like.
I was like, Drew, like a lot. Listen, I know when he's trolling, and there's a lot of creativity that goes into it. But I was like, Drew, what kind of 85-year-old fucking man is tweeting that shit?
Adam, this is different. This is different than Vegas. This is different than Seattle. More people are saying that.
Wow. Doesn't make it good.
No, I'm just saying more people are saying it.
Here's how I know you don't watch any hockey outside of the NHL. You tweet shit like that.
Okay.
How
many people watch non-NHL hockey?
There are tons of good hockey players all around the world. There are more now than there ever have been before. More now than ever. They're better trained. They're ready. And we're talking about 5 years from now. Come on, guys. Come on. If you're going to have a take about it, Drew, specifically, I'm talking to you. Put a little effort in. Well, I'm fine with, listen, I'm pro expansion because I want Atlanta to come back. I think it's going to work great. Their ownership situation was garbage last time. Team got no promotion. Alan tells a great story about it. I'm going to leave it for the show because I'm going to blow everything, but it's hilarious. Sure. It was a fucking clown show when the Thrashers were there. There's no other way to describe it.
They were a horrible hockey.
The Atlanta Flames from a bazillion years ago, who even knows what that was like? The NHL was essentially the Wirtz family and whatever they wanted at that point. And so now you've got a real owner with a real district with a real plan that's going in. Then you look at a market like Houston. Atlanta's a top 10 television market. This is key. Houston, I think, is bigger than Atlanta. They're both top 10 markets.
I believe you're right because in recent years, in terms of metropolitan area, Toronto passed Houston to like enter the top 5 or something.
And I'm pretty sure it's the Rockets owner.
New York, LA, Chicago, Philly, Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Boston, Washington, San Fran.
In terms of the states.
So just based on television market,
America, yeah.
Yeah, just based on television market alone, you can't have a serious league without markets 5 and 6.
6 and 7.
Or 6 and 7. Yeah. 67.
Can I pose a theory for why Atlanta didn't work?
Because their ownership was a clown show.
342 wins, 437 losses, and then 45, I guess that's overtime losses, and 78 shootout losses. I forgot that they used to have the records like that. Holy shit.
That's rough.
It's really
Can you
bad.
look up how many playoff wins the organization had?
0. I know for a fact it was
No. I'm not talking about. They never had a win in the playoffs, like one win,
Yes.
not a series.
They made the playoffs as the 3 seed against the 6th seeded New York Rangers. That's when Sean Avery drove Ilya Kovalchuk out of his mind, and the Rangers swept them.
Wow.
They never won a playoff game.
No wonder they couldn't market to fans.
Yeah.
They never won a playoff game. They made it once and they never won.
The point Adam's hammering on about the market size, you're doing a disservice to your business if you're in a market that's 30 rungs below on the largest markets in America when the 6 and 7 are right there. You know, if you're trying to build a business where you're trying to make money, you should be in places where there's people.
Yes.
And there's corporate dollars.
Yeah.
And there's fans. So the NHL would be smart to go into these markets.
And it seems like a lot right now because we've just had, I mean, people think like, oh, Vegas is a new team. Vegas is 7 or 8 years old now, guys. It's not that new. And Seattle.
And they've done well.
Yes, and they've done well. In Seattle.
Which is very important to the success of franchises.
Seattle
Atlanta
already
had-
has like so many more wins than the Atlanta Thrashers did in the playoffs.
Atlanta had 2 90 or more point seasons. 2 seasons of 90 points or more. Two out of 11. They had 1 season where they won more than half of their games.
Okay, so here's my point to Drew is
1.
how many hockey games, how many HL games do you watch in a year when you go, man, I'm not entertained?
Are you asking about his DAZN
Is Dazzin?
account where he can watch the KHL?
Hey, I have a Dazzin account, and I you can't throw on the KHL.
I have one that I borrow from my father-in-law.
Yeah.
What?
Well, that's not, no, that doesn't happen. You
No.
don't share.
No.
Sharing is not caring.
Especially not the Brits.
I think that it obviously it makes business sense, but we're talking about 5 years from now too. I think this is too much too soon for like the average person because it's Seattle just came in.
This is happening tomorrow.
Yes, we're talking 2030 here, guys. Yeah. Like it's a long time.
Wait, tomorrow?
Tomorrow is 2030.
This is happening tomorrow?
They approved it, Steve. That means they gotta get a team and get on the ice.
Real
Guys,
shit?
Utah couldn't even pick a fucking name.
On God?
It takes time to do stuff.
Yeah, and
Just like
it's
that.
going to be at least till after the new CBA is negotiated,
Which is
because
26.
they want the language in the new CBA about these expansion franchises that are coming in. And then once that happens, then you start kind of the expansion process, and that takes a couple of years. So yeah, it's 2030.
What I'm going to be curious about, guys, is not whether these teams are coming, because they are. The NHL needs to get in those markets full stop. I'm curious about whether they come in at the same time. Because if you remember back in the day, the NHL had Nashville, Atlanta, Columbus, and Minnesota all come back.
I kind of feel like this is better.
And
like
they came
one at a time.
And I believe they came back all at the same time.
Yes, they did.
And they also had extremely oppressive expansion draft rules. And same with the Ottawa Senators and Tampa Bay Lightning when they came in the early 90s.
They all stunk.
They were all bad for years, and they couldn't recover for years.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously so if these two teams
Minnesota was probably the quickest.
if these two teams come in together, it's going to make a chaotic offseason.
I would like them to come in together for the sake of conference alignment and scheduling, because nothing made me more upset.
You run a content company.
No, for the game.
Content, it would be better to spread it out.
For content, you want just content coming all the time. You know,
Yeah,
We get 2 years of expansion drafts. That's all fun. Like content, spread it out. But for the sake of the game, nothing made me more upset when one division had 7 teams and another one had 8. I was like,
I know, and we just fixed it.
and we just got to.
We're like, hey, let's ruin it.
We got to 16, 16, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. Like everything's perfect across the board and everything's kind of symmetrical. And then if we go 34, it's like, okay, we can make 17, 17 work. We may have to rejig the divisions a little, but like at least
Gary
it's
Bettman's
even.
plan. This is Gary Bettman's plan. Oh, now it's uneven, which means we got to put 2 more.
Oh no!
Gary will not be around.
36?
He will not be around for that, but I do think the NHL will go to
36 would, just
in the next 10 years.
That's got to be
In 10
like,
years.
At some
gotta be the
point,
goal.
you got to be like, all right.
I don't think you do.
No,
Are
you
you-
just have 60 teams.
No, I think you just play. You're not going to play every team every year.
No,
Lots of leagues do that.
You would.
With 36?
Yeah. Like that's.
I just don't know how you would do
That's
that
not-
because you have the divisional play too, right?
Yeah, but you'd play every team at least once. You wouldn't.
NHL goes to 100-game regular season.
You probably wouldn't
Holy
go
shit.
to each market twice.
Oh, okay. So
but
it's just like a one-timer, like one
maybe-
year you play this team at home and then
maybe you work it out like that, but like you'll play every team. I don't think the scheduling part of it isn't the biggest concern, but I just like the balanced nature of the schedule.
Yeah.
The business side of it is number one.
Yeah.
fairness of competition is number 2.
Oh yeah,
the NHL.
But what I want to get at was what do you say to the Drew who say that there aren't enough players to do this and that the competition?
Do you watch an NHL game ever and you're like, man, I really hated that. The lack of talent in that game was astounding.
Do you think there's
there
enough,
are boring
there's
games.
enough players?
Watch the Preds in the playoffs versus Vancouver last year. Boring. But nobody's going to look at that game and go, man, we're lacking talent.
Those are playoff teams, though. They're
Okay,
teams at the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're talking Ducks.
We're
dude.
talking about the.
We're not talking about.
No,
we're not talking about teams that intentionally said, "Fuck your talent, get off my team," which is what the Ducks, the Coyotes, the Blackhawks less so because they did have Bedard. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about teams that are like, yeah, we're trying to take a dive for Celebrini and Bedard. I'm talking about every team outside of the 4 or 5 teams every year that do that. That's a lot of teams.
Now, I don't think Drew said there's not enough talent. I think he said there's not enough star talent. And he might have a point there.
I don't think so.
The high-end talent.
I don't think so.
I don't hate that
More
argument.
Because how many stars? I'm not talking McDavid superstars. How many stars should a team have?
So
do we set the number at 4?
Let me throw an
That's
expansion
8 more stars.
example at you.
Okay.
How many goals did William Karlsson have for the Columbus Blue Jackets?
I think the answer is like 6 or 11 or something.
I remember actually when William Karlsson, it's probably not one of his favorite tweets, but Justin Bourne said, man, whoever let William Karlsson be taken in the expansion draft should be fired. And the guy that made the decision tweeted at him angrily. And I'm looking at so Karlsson played 18 games for the Ducks. He had 2 goals. He played 3 seasons, 2 full seasons with the Blue Jackets, and an 81 plus 81 plus 3, however many games that is, he had like 15 goals the entire time. Then he goes to Vegas and has 43. And since then, has been pretty good. Like last year especially was a nice comeback year for him, 30 goals, 30 assists. Guys like that exist in the NHL, and the opportunities aren't there.
You got to find them.
And you're telling me with these insane, like, look at these kids coming up from high school now. With the insane, the American academies that are going to get you in the NCAA. These kids are like soccer kids. They're picked at 8 years old. And it's like, that kid might have it. We're going to put him in crazy academy in Florida.
There's kids on the Whitby Wildcats doing the Michigan.
Yes. Yeah. I think there's going to be enough talent, everybody. Yeah. I don't think that's the problem. And Steve, you said something really interesting.
I know.
You said in the NHL, business comes first, competition second. And that has to be the way it is, because if the business sucks, there can be no competition.
Damn.
And so all I'm saying is you should be pro expansion. You should be pro expansion. And if you're like, you remember the Family Guy bit where it's like, remember guys, who's going to pay your bills? That's right, Hollywood kid. If you're
I don't remember that.
Parents, you should be thrilled about it. Well, there's more jobs.
You know who's probably thrilled about it? Hockey fans in the Atlanta and Houston area.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
Also, build an arena, Arizona, and we'll be back.
Exactly.
Oh, right.
Will as in the royal will of the game of hockey.
Forgot about that.